You are listening to the Nightly News Podcast, the voice of the Knights. This is Nightly News Correspondent Noah Lopez with the Fall 2025 episode of the Nightly News Brief. This news podcast features audio versions of stories from our student reporters. Articles by Noah Lopez, Jules Quare, Paul Miller, Alex Foley, and Arsenio Humphrey are featured in today's episode. The 2025 season marked a defining chapter for the Central Penn College Knights men's soccer team, a season that delivered growth, grit, and a continued rise on the national stage. Central Penn solidified itself as one of the nation's emerging programs, with appearances in the USCAA Division II National Championship Tournament and a top 10 national ranking. This year also marked a heartfelt farewell to four seniors, Ben Painter, Greg Conkle, Ali Korkatovich, and Blake Iserman, each of whom played an integral role in shaping a season filled with milestones and unforgettable moments. One of the most iconic highlights came during homecoming, when senior Ali Korkatovich scored the lone goal against Patrick Henry College, securing not just a 1-0 victory, but a memory destined to echo through CPC soccer history, a moment any young player of the sport would dream of achieving. The Knights finished the regular season ranked 8th in the nation, posting an 8-6-3 overall record and a 5-1-2 conference record, displaying their consistency, discipline, and competitive identity. Their efforts earned them a second consecutive berth in the USCAA Division II National Tournament, reinforcing their standing among the country's top programs, and adding to a growing list of accolades that continue to elevate the program's reputation. In the opening match on November 14th, Central Penn delivered one of the most compelling performances of the tournaments, securing an electrifying 2-1 upset over number 2 seed Penn State New Kensington, a team that had defeated the Knights in the regular season. When it mattered most, Central Penn responded, flipping the script in a dramatic fashion to advance to the next round. The Knights' postseason run came to an end in the second round against a talented Cincinnati Claremont squad. Central Penn fell 3-1, concluding the team's tournament journey, but not the momentum they carried throughout the year. Throughout the season, the Knights proved to be one of the toughest and most disciplined teams in the USCAA, especially at Skyline Stadium, where they obtained a 4-1-1 record. As the year ends, Central Penn continues to show the nation that this is a program on the rise. 2 consecutive national tournament appearances, another tournament victory at a top 10 national ranking represent significant steps forward, each one strengthening a foundation that future players will nurture and build on. The current world record for the longest pickleball match stands at 36 hours, set by the Pickle Breakers in April in Carlton, Texas. But this month, Nightly News Hall of Famer and former Central Penn College soccer player Andrew Hunter and some friends are hoping to break that record. Hunter and 3 teammates plan to play the popular game for 48 consecutive hours, beginning at 6 a.m. on Black Friday at the Ace Pickleball Club Enola, and to find their way to a listing by Guinness World Records. Hunter, who works in the college's athletics department, first picked up pickleball in high school, but rediscovered it during college. After starting a job at Ace last August, he began taking the sport more seriously through frequent drills, games, and tournaments. The idea for the record attempt began when a member at the club suggested it to Hunter during a shift, and what started as a casual conversation quickly turned into a serious plan. Hunter and his teammates said they want to break the record because they thought it would be a great way to promote the club and to help raise funds for charities. Because doubles requires 4 players, Hunter and his teammates initially struggled to find enough participants. Eventually, 2 of his close friends, who also happened to be his men's and mixed doubles partners, agreed to join, forming the team that will take on the challenge. Joining Hunter in the 48-hour marathon are Renee Sipos, Steve Lesko, and Steve Dunham. Each player will represent a different charity during the event as well. Hunter chose to play for his church's homelessness fund, which he connected to after producing a class video on homelessness in Harrisburg. Sipos will play for 4 Diamonds, a charity that helps children with cancer, while Lesko will raise awareness for suicide prevention. The event's main sponsor, Head Pickleball, will provide top-tier gear for the team, including 4 paddles, 36 of their top-of-the-line balls, shirts, and banners to display around the court. And to make the record final and official, the group had to apply through Guinness World Records. Hunter said that the process included submitting an application, waiting for approval, and reviewing a detailed rulebook outlining what players can and cannot do. Hunter told the Nightly News, quote, "We got our approval faster than expected, so we decided to move the date up to Black Friday," end quote. While Hunter's soccer days at Central Penn are behind him, his drive to compete and represent his community remains strong. As a former Knights goalkeeper, Nightly News Vice President, and 2025 Hall of Fame inductee, Hunter continues to embody the spirit of dedication and teamwork he built during his college years. And while this article was written beforehand, we would like to congratulate Andrew and his teammates for breaking the world record. Dental assistants. I know that when you hear that term, you think, that's an easy job. It must be someone standing next to the dentist, assisting, right? Well, I'm guilty of that. But after talking with and hanging out a while with dental students participating in the program Central Penn offers, I quickly learned there is much more to the job than standing next to a dentist. To begin, dental assistants complete the sterilization process of instruments used. They monitor infection control. They assist with scheduling. They have patient interaction, and they may need to be a comfort to someone who is nervous about having dental work done. And Central Penn offers a program for people who want to pursue a future in dental work. Ann Hoffman, director of the dental program and a strong mentor for her students, started out in dental assisting and then moved up the ladder to become a hygienist and influence her family, who had experience in the dental field. She said she wanted to be part of the healthcare system. She explained how being in the dental field provides a good work-life balance, giving her something to enjoy during the day and time with her loved ones after work is done. She teaches and has labs with her students in the afternoon. These sessions consist of meeting with students at a dental office after hours and practicing in a clinical setting. Once students reach their 3rd term, they can interact with patients during the lab time, giving the students the feeling of what it will be like to work on their own after graduation. The position comes with a high demand, making it almost a guarantee of job acceptance after graduation. Hoffman's students appreciate the program they found. Emmeline Swartz, in her 1st term, has always had an interest in the dental field. She decided that Central Penn was a good option because she will be in the field in 9 months. Inside the classroom, Swartz was surprised to learn how much came with the job and the depth of knowledge involved. She will, for example, be learning how to complete oral x-rays and more. Isa Cortez Babon is learning to her full potential under Hoffman's guidance and Central Penn's program. She said her favorite part of the training is getting the real-life experience during lab days. Cortez Pabon lives close to Central Penn, so she knew Central Penn was affordable. She said she appreciates the personability of her small class. Unfortunately, Alexis Root had a rough start to training in her chosen career. Root attended Hack to start in dental hygiene, but switched to Central Penn's dental assisting program, which requires only 9 months to complete. Root is halfway to starting her career and said the experiences she has gained at CPC will help her expand her knowledge so she can jump back on the path to being a hygienist. Root said, quote, "The program is very personable," end quote. Kama Ender's take on dental assisting is a little different from the rest. Enders loves art and wanted a future that included it. Enders said she will be able to make the most of this program and future career because she can view the work in a creative way. She was a little taken aback by the amount of information she had to learn for the position, but would not change it for anything. Enders is satisfied with the program, and she is building a wonderful baseline of knowledge so that if she wants to expand her skill set and move up the clinical ladder, she will be able to do so with ease. The CPC film series made a thrilling return to the Capitol Blue Cross Theater on October 24th, this time being accompanied by a pre-show haunted tour of the underground. The presenter of the night was Dr. Paul Miller, Assistant Professor of Media Studies, returning to the CPC film series stage for the 5th time. Miller showed one of his favorite films, the 1996 classic slasher film, Scream. Before the screening, Miller discussed his choice of film on the Nightly News podcast. On the show, he discussed the significance of Scream for the horror and slasher genres, as well as its personal significance for Miller. Miller explained that the CPC film series has a history of screening spookier movies during the fall term. Previous years have seen films such as the murder mystery Knives Out, the zombie horror film Dawn of the Dead, and Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow. He continued by saying, quote, "Looking back, I now see how movies such as Scream impacted my future career path," end quote. He then elaborated that he wasn't just choosing the movie for the festive atmosphere of an October night, but that Scream was an incredibly influential film to him when he was younger. Before the presentation, the Nightly News Media Club hosted a haunted tour of the underground. This was a first in the club's history. From the beginning, club members were adamant about doing something special for this film series event, especially with it falling only a week before Halloween. And after some logistical issues were ironed out, the group moved forward with the haunted tour of the underground, spending the better part of 2 months planning for the evening. This was a team effort, as Miller said after the show, with over a dozen club members, past and present, participating in the setup and execution of the event. As guests arrived, Miller greeted them at the amphitheater in front of the Milano Hall. Here, the stage was set, with Miller sharing the history about Central Penn College and its roots to the region, also sharing the evolution of the college, how it moved to Summerdale, and a brief history of the Boyer Farm, the land upon which the college sits. From there, Miller regaled the audience about a fictitious tale of curious students who, using a Ouija board, disturbed the spirit of the Boyer house. The tour featured 3 rooms in the underground. It started with a haunted hayloft, where one of the students who summoned the spirit detailed the series of disturbing events that had happened since. Then guests had to face their fears in the spider room, needing to confront them head-on in order to escape. In the final room, participants had to solve an elaborate riddle to be granted passage to the film series event, while also navigating a visit from Ghostface himself. The haunted tour, which was free and done for donations to the Nightly News, saw approximately 70 attendees. After the haunted tour concluded, Miller began his presentation, entitled Killer Commentary: How Scream Reinvented the Slasher Genre Through Satire and Self-Reflection. During his presentation, Miller examined how Scream revitalized the slasher genre through its sharp blend of satire, self-awareness, and suspense. He explained that by directly acknowledging horror cliches, Scream invited audiences to become active participants rather than passive viewers. Miller highlighted how writer Kevin Williamson and director Wes Craven created a film that was both a love letter to classic horror and a critique of its overused formulas. This film was unlike any of its horror movie predecessors. As Miller noted in his presentation, Scream uses self-referential meta-commentary on the genre, expectations of horror films. The characters themselves speak throughout the film about horror movie tropes and compare their situation to those films. Characters make subtle references to previous horror films and even quote them directly at times. During the pre-show presentation, Miller explained, quote, "What was unique about Scream was the use of satire. Usually people think of satire as meaning comedy, but this satire comes from calling out the cliches of horror movies. Ironically, Wes Craven also directed many of those cliché horror films that were being called out in the film, essentially making fun of himself," end quote. Unlike many previous leading female roles in horror movies, Prescott was not portrayed as helpless, nor as a bumbling throwaway character. Her survival depended on her smarts and her own strength. Ultimately, she was the one to save herself. When Scream released, this portrayal of a female lead was still rare in film, let alone in the horror genre. In the years leading up to the release of Scream, horror, especially slasher horror, had been growing stale. Miller explained, quote, "Scream revitalized and modernized slasher films in a way that just has not been done since. If Scream never existed, the slasher genre may have never come back, end quote. Ironically, Scream brought the slasher genre back to life. Not only did the film lead to the development of an entire franchise with 6 films and a television show, along with another in active development to be released in 2026, but it also served as inspiration for numerous other films and film series. Concluding the discussion of Scream, Miller said, quote, "This movie was smart. It wasn't overly violent or gory, and for the most part, it was just a really well-done satire of the horror genre." End quote. The CPC film series will return on February 27th, 2026, with Noah Lopez presenting the 1999 film Fight Club. The Nightly News Media Club at Central Penn College inducted 4 distinguished alumni members into the Nightly News Hall of Fame in a celebration held as the kickoff event to the 2025 homecoming in Summerdale. The 4 individuals inducted, Dylan Bowman, Gabrielle Abby Bresky, Janelle Dulac, and Andrew Hunter, all provided thoughtful and emotional reflections on their time in the club, often imparting wise words aimed at current club members who were in the audience. Many of the discussions focused on their memories of the club, but also had the opportunity to share the importance of campus involvement and how their time with the Nightly News prepared them for their current careers. 6 other Hall of Famers were in attendance as well, inducted during the 3 previous ceremonies, including Dr. Linda Fedrizzi Williams, Norman Geary, Christine Fusselman, Sherry Smith, Parker Rose, and Tyler Coleman. To start off the event, Dr. Paul Miller and Professor Michael Lear-Olympi offered a brief overview about what being involved with the club has meant to them, especially because 2025 marks 10 years of excellence for the Nightly News. Then another award was given out, with Ken Olsen receiving the Shining Star Award. This award shows appreciation for individuals on campus who go above and beyond to support the Nightly News in fulfilling its mission. Previous winners of this award include Adrian Thoman, Steve Hassinger, Dr. Jared Reif, Casey Hicks, and Sandy Box. From there, all of the previous Hall of Famers in attendance offered comments on the impact of the last decade with the Nightly News. There were a number of poignant remarks about not only what the Nightly News has meant to the previously inducted Hall of Famers, but also important memories and lessons learned being a part of the club. As an interlude in the ceremony, the West Shore Connect documentary was screened for the attendees, as 3 of those being inducted worked together alongside Miller to produce the film. Miller was the executive producer, Dulac was the director, Bowman was the director of photography and editing, and Bresky was the assistant producer for the film, created as a marketing tool for the West Shore Connect program. From there, it was time to honor the inductees. After a brief introduction from Olympi and Miller, the Hall of Famers individually made their way to the podium and shared brief speeches about their experience with the Nightly News. Bowman, Bresky, Dulac, and Hunter all were involved in different ways with the club and shared wise words for the audience. For the second time, the Nightly News Hall of Fame was the kickoff for the homecoming weekend in Summerdale, leading up to the soccer doubleheader matches on Friday at Skyline Sports Complex on City Island in Harrisburg. This event, held biannually, recognizes individuals who have made a significant contribution to advancing the standing of the Nightly News, as well as the college at large, during their time at the institution. This has been Noah Lopez with the Fall 2025 episode of the Nightly News Brief.
Ho, ho, ho! Happy holidays! This is Santa Claus, and you're listening to the Nightly News Podcast. Ho, ho, ho!
Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and we are here today with a very special episode of the Nightly News Podcast. Today, I am actually going to be interviewed by Noah Lopez, someone who, if you've listened to the podcast at all over the past year, you know Noah very well. So, Noah, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you take it from there.
All right, so Professor Miller, today we are, talking about your dissertation, your process, and the fact you're now Dr. Miller. So I can call you Doc.
Yes, that you can.
So I want to just start off with what drew you to the topic of your dissertation. I know it was related to family, tradition, and Christmas movies, but if you could further elaborate for the audience, that'd be great.
Well, first of all, Noah, I want to thank you for showing interest in doing this. It's not something that I want to necessarily do just to, toot my own horn or anything like that, but it is something I'm very proud of and something that will directly impact my students in the future. So my dissertation was entitled Cinematic Celebrations, and the sort of elevator pitch for it is essentially it is about how families use Christmas movies, parents and children use Christmas movies as part of their annual traditions around the holiday season. Why I thought that this was interesting to talk about today is obviously each of us just went through a holiday season and probably watched a large variety of movies. So I was always really interested in that sort of phenomenon of what role Christmas movies play in the way that the American culture celebrates. It wasn't something that I knew I was going to do from the very beginning, and we can talk more about that later, but I love film. I've presented in film at national conferences. I've always been really interested in film. I've been a fan of movies since I was just a kid. When my mom used to take me, we'd go to the movies every single week. When I was a teenager, before I drove, I walked to the movie theater. I lived very close to the movie theater in Carlisle. I would walk to the movie theater each week, and I would always check out movies, so I've always been a huge film buff. So I knew something in the film area was what I wanted to focus on.
So something in the film area, and I want to know what really led you to the Christmas side of films. I know when you're thinking about films, Christmas has almost the most under one genre, but what really drew you to Christmas films and family ties?
That's a wonderful question.
Yes.
So you can ask anybody who knows me, especially my wife. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of Christmas, which is very strange. Well, listen, I think everyone likes Christmas in that, you get to see people you haven't seen for a while. People give you stuff, that's great. But I never was really one who really got into Christmas, right?
Okay.
And so it was kind of strange for me at first to land on this, but in a sense, I actually believe that helped me because I didn't come into this process with a lot of the biases that maybe people who are really, really into Christmas might have had. But I will tell you something, and this is a really important part of this, and I talk about this in my introduction. So my family has had a tradition ever since I was a kid, really ever since the movie came out, to watch National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Yep, that's a classic.
For a long time on Christmas Eve and is now evolved to Christmas Day. It was something that we did every year, no questions asked. You had to be there. It was just one of the things our family did. Unfortunately, Noah, back in 2016, my father passed away on Christmas Day.
Oh, man.
It's obviously been some time now, so it doesn't, sting quite as bad as it did initially. But that was very difficult for our family. Losing people around the holiday season is never easy. Losing people in general is never easy, but losing somebody on Christmas Day was very difficult. And so for a year or two after that, it was tough to get into the Christmas spirit because we were constantly thinking about my father who passed away. But after that, and this is, I don't know, maybe 18 or 19, we really tried to represent this tradition that we had, almost as if it was he would have wanted us to continue this tradition.
I feel like he would, no?
Yeah. So that's really where it came from, in that we knew that as a family, this was a way to represent and honor our father, my mom's husband, who we lost on Christmas Day. So like I said, the first couple of years it was tough, but after that it was this is something we need to continue. So I thought to myself, we can't be the only family that experiences this. We talked to other families. Oh, we watched Home Alone. We watched The Christmas Story, whatever. So I realized that this is a cultural phenomenon when I first started into my program. As I went forward and I was trying to land on something, it's just the one thing that always was sort of in the back of my mind. And once it came time to pick a topic, that's what I went with.
So you chose Christmas movies, because of the cultural phenomenon that it causes in our world, and due to your own background. Very sad. I'm sorry, by the way.
It's I appreciate that, but it's fine.
I want to know what were some of the most surprising things you found during your research? Because when you're researching, say, movies and something like family ties, it's an intangible thing. You can't really go to a store and look at a book about. I mean, you could, but you can't really tell what family ties are. It's kind of like love. It's a feeling in the air, So tell me about that. What's the most interesting thing you found in your research?
A couple interesting things. First and foremost, what I found was that I think a lot of times when we think about why we watch movies, it's often just for entertainment, where we maybe have some downtime, there's some shows we really like. But what I found was that these movies are integral to the way that American families, at least the ones who I interviewed, celebrate. That Christmas wouldn't be Christmas if they don't watch Home Alone or Christmas Vacation or, in some cases, Die Hard, right? That's what I found that was really interesting, and probably the most interesting is that this is something that across our society has become such an integral part of celebrating this holiday every single year in ways that, frankly, no other holiday can emulate. Outside of something like, say, Groundhog Day, which is a movie which I love and is around, and my birthday's on Groundhog Day.
It's associated with your birthday.
I'm sure a lot of people watch Groundhog Day on Groundhog Day just as sort of a celebratory thing. But outside of that, I can't think of any other holiday, short of maybe Halloween, that people gravitate to specific media as part of the celebration. Second interesting thing that I found, Noah, was that, and this was what honestly blew my mind.
Okay.
I researched for about 6 months trying to find anything even remotely close to what I wanted to study. And frankly, there was nothing anywhere near what I was attempting to study, which was really cool because when you do a dissertation, you want it to be unique and different. And that's what it was. I found a research gap.
And that certainly was when I heard you were doing a dissertation on Christmas movies. The first time I heard that, I was like, what? How do you do that? But you found a way, and you have your doctorate now, and it's,
well, and I would also say, Noah, I don't want the first question that I got from a lot of people, students and friends and family, okay, you're doing it on Christmas movies. What movies? And I want to point out that while I'm using sort of Christmas Vacation as a case study here with my own personal attachment to this, it's not necessarily about one specific movie. Now, I will point out that there is a significant part about the Christmas movie genre and what some of these genre conventions are, that what an average Christmas movie might be to people and what some of those traits are. So there was some about Christmas movies as a whole, and of course I talked about specific movies, but there was no one specific movie because frankly, depending on how old you are, how old your kids are, different movies might enter into your tradition, whereas one family might watch It's a Wonderful Life every Christmas, another one might watch Elf.
I watch It's a Wonderful Life every Christmas. It's an amazing movie. I love the wholesome part of it. And that actually might lead into my next question is, why do you think Christmas movies resonate so strongly with audiences across generations? For me, I would say because of just how wholesome it is and how it adds to the happy, jolly, say, vibe of the season. When you watch these movies, you walk away feeling good. So would you say that's one of the reasons?
Well, we're skipping straight forward to the conclusions here, Noah.
Oh, really?
Which is fine. But to answer that question, essentially what I found was that there are two major things that people take away from watching Christmas movies. Again, we were focused on parents and children. So there's other potential studies that could talk about, siblings, grandparents, right? All of these different things. But the one thing that we found is, number one, it had to do with family bonding.
Yes.
Many of the people, so what I did a series of focus groups. I had 6 different focus groups. So I talked to, I believe it was like 40 some people. I can't remember off the top of my head how many exactly it was. But it was about 40 people. And what I found was almost every single person said that the reason that they watched these films was for the opportunity to bond with their families. That a lot of times, maybe in the summer, even into the fall, we're so busy with sports, especially people with young children doing sports, constantly running around, that the Christmas holiday season afforded them some time to actually sit down, watch a movie with their family, which around the rest of the year was rare. The second thing that we found, in addition to the bonding, was that these films contribute to the festive atmosphere of the season, which is what you just
100%.
literally mentioned, right? You put on a Christmas movie, and it feels like Christmas. This was one of the literal themes that I came out, is that people said that it made it feel like Christmas, and that was something that I found very interesting, that just putting a movie on has the ability to sort of transport us into this idea of what Christmas should be in our own minds.
And I want to kind of ask, this might be a weird question, but did you do in your research at all any comparisons to, say, opposite holidays like Halloween or Thanksgiving, or maybe even, St. Patrick's Day or Groundhog's Day? How do these movies compare to, say, watching horror movies in Halloween or watching The Nightmare Before Christmas, which does mix both? I wonder if that was in your research.
Certainly, I'll answer that last question first. Nightmare Before Christmas was an interesting case study in that some people watched it at Halloween and at Christmas, and it was sort of this bookend of the holiday season, because for some of the people who I talked to, Christmas started, basically end of October, like the Christmas season, right? So for some people, it's sort of that, hey, we're ushering in the Christmas, season, and we'll watch it at the end of the season to sort of usher out the season. So that was one unique case study that certainly was brought up. To answer your first question about other holidays, so because my research was so focused on Christmas, I didn't really talk much more than a little bit about The Nightmare Before Christmas about other holidays. Just in my research, if you're asking me to answer that question aside from my dissertation, I would simply say that I do not believe that any other holiday has the same impact from a film perspective as Christmas. Of course, maybe down the line, Noah, you might think, or maybe in your scholarly endeavors down the road, maybe you sort of replicate my study, but talk about Halloween and how horror films play into making that vibe of holiday. I doubt that families watch horror films to bond.
I don't think anyone would really disagree with what you're saying here, is that Christmas probably has the most impact film wise on the world. I mean, how many Thanksgiving movies are there? What, the Great Pumpkin?
No, listen, there are definitely some. There's Valentine's Day movies, there's Groundhog Day movies. I'm sure
there's only one that I know of.
Well, that's because it was so well done that no one dare try to repeat it. And really, I don't want to get down a rabbit hole about Groundhog Day, but yes, it is about Groundhog Day, but it's not really about Groundhog Day, but we can hold that for another time.
All right. I want to know, what advice would you give to someone studying family traditions or holiday culture, or doing a dissertation such as yourself, how you would give them advice on, and maybe explain some of your journey and like the missteps that you had?
Well, gosh, I want to start off by saying it took me about 2.5 years from A to Z to do this dissertation. Wow. And certainly part of the reason was because I was a part-time student. Obviously, I have many duties here at Central Penn College, even above and beyond just being a professor, of course, doing the sports and other things here. I volunteer in the community. I have a family. I have a social life, right? All of those things. So because I was only going part-time, it took me 2.5 years. I will say I hit every deadline that I had. So it was the intention for it to take me that long. It was the intention for me to graduate in December of 2024. So on that respect, I appreciate that. Advice on I'm going to say this. I'm not going to necessarily give advice on doing a dissertation solely because my situation and your situation would vary greatly. But here's what I would say. The best things that happened to me throughout this process, 2 things I can think of. Number one, my advisor, Dr. Zach Stiegler from IUP.
Shout out
to Dr. Stiegler, was literally one of the most important people in my life. Not only just from being a professor, but being a mentor, being a friend, and being someone who I will 100% be on speaking terms with for the rest of our lives, because he had that kind of impact on me. He helped me through some tough times. There were some really close deadlines that he really helped me get through, and his positive attitude and positive feedback to me was so important. And the second thing, Noah, and this is something I think that applies even to our students here at Central Penn. My best thing that I remember in terms of getting through this was simply having a network of other students that we could talk about and vent to each other. And this is where sometimes I think students even here at Central Penn could benefit from this advice is, every once in a while talking to other students because they're going through the same things as you are. And even if they can't or don't want to give you advice, sometimes just talking through it makes so much of a difference in terms of your mental health. Struggled with mental health problems, throughout this, my PhD program, and having those folks, that was one of the ways that I really ended up making it in over this last couple years is we had a little group that we would meet every few weeks to every month that we're all doing our dissertation. We could kind of vent to each other.
Really?
And it made all of the difference.
And you say, would you say, like, I'm going to put this to a student's perspective, maybe like if they were doing a research paper, doing these things that you just said, talking to other students and, seeking out a mentor or actually asking for help or even getting input from others really helps with the lengthy research process, would you say?
I think a lot of students really struggle with isolation. And what I mean by that is not that you're isolated, especially for you live on campus. You're not isolated. Yeah. You're around people all the time. But it's
still isolated on this campus. Believe it or not, the dorms and the nature of them, having singular rooms is a really, really bad way to isolate everyone from everyone.
One thing in how I might put this into my teaching is I might, in future research papers, I might put people into groups or even just having a for lack of a better term, a buddy that they can just talk to. Just have a sounding board. Maybe they can guide you or maybe you can help each other. Or if nothing else, having somebody taking a second look at a paper can be just vastly and immensely important to this whole research process. So, again, in terms of dissertation advice, I'm probably not the one to take advice from because I do think it's such an individualized thing. But having a mentor and a guide through this process is key. And really just reaching out to other people who are going through the same things as you can really be helpful to your mental health and your motivation.
All right. And lastly, I want to, I don't know if it's lastly, but I want to leave with this question here. How do you think your research that you've done contributes to our broader understanding of culture and identity? I want to know that. Or how you think your research can make an impact on the future.
Well, gosh, one of the things that you do have to do in a dissertation is have this exact conversation.
Oh, wow, okay.
Like, in your conclusion, and no, I would love for you to read it someday, and I do have some books if anybody would be so interested in getting a copy that I had made. In your conclusion, part of what you have to do is say, okay, here's what I found, and here's why it's important.
Interesting.
There's a lot of different things, I believe, in terms of programming that media creators can actually use from this to help create better work. You know what I mean? Better film, better television. Because if they understand how people use it, they might be able to tweak certain things within their production. But generally, to answer your question directly about family, what I would say is keep the traditions that you have. They mean a lot. For any of you students out there who every, Christmas week your parents want to watch Home Alone with you, do it. Even though in the moment I'm sure you can probably think of some things you might rather do on the short term. You have no idea the impact when these things happen year after year and how important they are to keeping family traditions. Beyond that, I would just say that it's amazing to me how much people love Christmas movies. It's amazing to me how many people will really go out of their way to watch numerous Christmas movies every year. One of the things that I really, really appreciated about all of this was to see the look of joy on people's faces when they talk. Now, granted, I will say that our focus groups were around the holidays.
Okay.
So I suppose in some respect there might be a potential for some biases. Maybe I wonder how the responses might have differed if I would have done them in the middle of the summer or things like that. But that's the thing, Noah, in the end that I took away the most. Number one, that people love Christmas movies. People love Christmas, and what is Christmas without family? And so for parents and children, having these bonds that go through the teenage years, through the college years, and even then to when their kids are adults, what I've then found is how these span generations. For instance, one of the people in the group talked about how they had a tradition of watching The Christmas Story with their children. And now that their child has grown up, that family now has a tradition of watching The Christmas Story.
Oh, wow. They pass it on.
So sometimes it's sort of the cyclical nature that happens over time. And then, then it's spanning generations. So holding that tradition sacred over the years of watching a movie, which to some of us we just do without even thinking about it, has so much impact on the way and the happiness that people perceive from each holiday season. That, to me, is what is so important about all of this. Of course, there's plenty of other conclusions that I come up with, but if you're asking me to put it to one, it is simply that. It's the fact that these traditions mean so much to people as we get older. So students out there, I know sometimes hanging out with your family is not the most fun thing in the world to do, especially between the ages of 18 and 22.
Oh, man.
But please, for them, and maybe for your own future family, sit down and watch a Christmas movie with them next holiday season.
I feel like that aspect of not wanting to hang out with your family is just something you do to seem cool, because at the end, you really love these people. I mean, they've been with you your entire life. I don't understand that part.
Part of what I found, too, in my discussion section was that this is what we call cyclical. And what we mean by that is that often a lot of these traditions evolve from childhood to early teen years, and then there's sort of a period of rebellion from teenagers. I know that that's crazy to say, right? But what we found is that often after that sort of rebellion period, often once they get a little bit older, people come back around to some of those childhood traditions that they had and re-engage with them, which I found very interesting as well.
Wow. All right. So I want to ask you this one last thing here is, when you were doing your research and you're researching all these films and stories, what were, like, I know you said your biggest, like, the most interesting things. What were your biggest, hurdles that you had to overcome during this process?
Have you ever written a 150-page paper before?
No, I don't want to.
Guess what? I hadn't either.
Okay.
No, that's the biggest thing. Anybody who's walking into a dissertation, look, I'd done plenty of 30, 40, even 50-page papers throughout my PhD program, but I'd never done anything of a scope like this. Also, part of the issue was to just finding people. We had what I called focus group liaisons, meaning that each group had a leader, and they helped me find people.
Yes.
But, not everything always works out the way you hope. People had things come up. One time we had to cancel one of the focus groups because of weather. It was in January, so there were some hurdles. But generally speaking, everything with that went well. The biggest thing was I just never done anything to this scope before, and just trying to understand what the expectations were, not only from my advisor but my entire committee, and the depth that is needed to go into that. But once I got the hang of that, it really was quite easy. And once I did the focus groups, I hate to say this for lack of a better term, it sort of wrote itself.
Oh, wow.
Again, there were some bumps in the road, but I had an amazing committee. Dr. Vicky Ortiz was wonderful as well. She really helped me out. Jeremy Waltman is.
You did this together with other people?
So we have a committee. So
Okay.
I'm in charge, but they are basically my professor, quote unquote, to give me feedback every step of the way, to okay things and to provide me with guidance. And I picked the best committee I possibly could, and I give a shout out to Dr. Vicky Ortiz, Jeremy Waltman, and Dr. Zach Stiegler as well. They were on my committee. So I just thank you so much to all of you, and I couldn't have made it here without you.
Wow. And, well, now that we have, Dr. Miller's insight on his dissertation, I want to just say, if you had to present a separate, if you were to choose something else other than Christmas movies, what were you thinking about choosing?
Well, interestingly enough, Noah, one of the things when you get into this point of academia, you kind of have to find a lane. And one of the things that I actually suggested in my conclusions was I believe that there needs to be an area of study called holiday studies.
Oh, wow.
Not necessarily just about movies and holidays, but holidays across the board. I mean, we could have done the exact same study with Christmas music. We could have done it with a variety of other things. So that's really the thing that if you're asking me in 5 years, where do I see this taking me? I would love, I'm an active member of the Popular Culture Association. This will be my 5th year coming up in 2025 that I'll be presenting there.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to, I did get a little extra data, so I want to do a presentation about not if Die Hard is a Christmas movie. A lot of people get me a little off track with that. But why do people argue about this? Like, why is it such a contentious thing? So if you're asking me, like, why and how this is going to change, like, maybe my lane is Christmas. Christmas in film, Christmas in media. You know, how do people perceive the genre of Christmas movies? Those are the types of things. And maybe, you never know, maybe I pitched a PCA to have a holiday studies area. Maybe I'm the chair of that area. I mean, there's a lot of big things that could come from this.
That would be amazing. Do you think that the portrayal of the families in these movies are, what'd you say, realistic and reflect how we interact in real life, would you say?
Well, that's a really difficult question to ask because movies are a reflection of society, but society is also a reflection of popular culture. So I think it's a give and take. I think that filmmakers try to show an image of a family that they believe. Of course, most families aren't as perfect as some of the families we see in the films, but then again, some of the most popular films are about, for lack of a better term, dysfunctional families. Look at Home Alone. Look at National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Even look at something like Elf. Of course,
The Christmas Story was also one where it was a crazy family.
So I think that these popular films are a reflection of what filmmakers believe, but also our families are a reflection of the films, the television, the media that we watch.
Wow.
Well, Noah, I want to tell you, thank you so much for interviewing me today. First of all, it's so awesome that you have taken an interest in this. You did an amazing job asking me some questions, and I just appreciate your efforts in taking an interest and being down here with me today. So thank you so much for your time, and what a great interview.
Well, thank you for allowing me to interview you. It's been great. It's my first time interviewing you, so I hope it was a good job and paints you in a good light.
100%. Well, thank you so much to Nightly News correspondent Noah Lopez for coming down here today, talking a little bit more about my dissertation, of course. If you would like to read my dissertation or you'd like a copy, please just reach out, paulmiller@centralpenn.edu, and I would be happy to get that to you. So, well, Noah, that's going to do it for this episode. Again, thank you so much for your time today.
And thank you. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Hope you guys have a great day.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Nightly News Podcast. We'll see you again next time.